order the Bradford Executive Village Board of Education November 15th meeting. If we could stand for the pledge, please. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please, Carmen.
Dr. Swab.
Here.
Mrs. Brewer.
Here.
Pastor Reinl.
Here.
Mr. Biesecker.
Here.
Mr. Manuel.
Here. And welcome everyone here this evening in our wintry weather. Sorry for the delay, we had to get a new fresh set of agendas. So we'll move right on to the meeting, meat of the meeting. And so next is reviewing the agenda and approving it. Do we have any additions or deletions to the agenda? If none, do we have a motion to approve?
Amen.
Second. And roll call for approval, please.
Dr. Swab.
Yes.
Mrs. Brewer.
Yes.
Pastor Reinl.
Yes.
Mr. Biesecker.
Yes.
Mr. Manuel.
Yes.
Next is approving our October 18th minutes. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Any additions or deletions or any changes or discussion about the minutes? Hearing none, then roll call for approval as printed.
Dr. Swab.
Yes.
Mrs. Brewer.
Yes.
Pastor Reinl.
Yes.
Mr. Biesecker.
Yes.
Mr. Manuel.
Yes.
Thanks. Next, I'd like to turn the meeting over to our administrative team for our student spotlight.
So we're going to start off with our student spotlight with the elementary students. And the first is Hunter Gilbert, who was nominated by Mr. Gurley. This is what Mr. Gurley had to say about Hunter. I would like the Bradford Board of Education to recognize Hunter Gilbert. Hunter is the son of Casey and Tony Gilbert. When he is not in school, Hunter enjoys playing with his friends, spending time with his family, and playing outside. Hunter is a hard worker who always has a great attitude. He is often smiling and enjoying himself while he is working on schoolwork. He is wonderful at leading by example because he is sure to stay on task and model classroom and school rules. He is very kind to peers and treats others with a great deal of respect. Hunter is a pleasure to have in class. His hard work ethic and great attitude do not go unnoticed. It is for these reasons I would like the Board of Education to recognize Hunter Gilbert. Great job, Hunter, and congratulations. And then our next honoree is Natalie Frank, who is in the classroom, or in this room. So Natalie, do you want to come up here and stand by me? He shut up, so now I gotta say all the nice things. So Natalie Rank was nominated by Mrs. Fry, and this is what Mrs. Fry had to say about it. Natalie Rank is currently a third grade student at Bradford Elementary. I have nominated her for recognition because she truly demonstrates what it means to be Bradford's best. Natalie comes to school every morning with a positive attitude and a smile on her face. She goes out of her way to help others physically and emotionally. This altruism has helped create a more positive and peaceful environment in the classroom and school. Another characteristic that Natalie possesses is dedication. She works hard and pushes herself to be her best on whatever she's doing. With these qualities, Natalie is a natural role model for our class and school community. She continually demonstrates this exemplary behavior, which will lead her to accomplish any goal that she sets for herself in life. I cannot wait to see the success that Natalie has had this year and in her future career. Great job, Natalie, and congratulations. Congratulations, Natalie. And moving on with the junior high school, we have Dalton Reck, who is nominated by Mrs. Moore. And Mrs. Moore said, I would like to nominate Dalton Reck for the November Student Spotlight. Dalton has been in the publication class for 3 years. This year and last year, he was and is the school yearbook editor and the Rotor Show producer. It's amazing how he can come up with all these ideas for the Rotor Show. He tries new ideas on his yearbook pages. I have Dalton in my other classes, and he helps the students that are sitting by him, which helps me when I need to help other students in the room. Dalton is a take charge person. I know if I need something done, Dalton will do it in a timely manner and give me quality work. Great job, Dalton, and congratulations. And then finally, we have Isley Gamble, who's nominated by Mrs. Lynn. I'm happy to have Isley Gamble as our November Student Spotlight. She definitely is a role model representing our 5 R's. Isley has such a big heart. Selfless, caring, and hardworking are just a few ways to describe what a great student she is. Isley consistently puts the best interests of others ahead of her own. She's a friend to all and others, a helping hand to any student or teacher in need. Being polite is just part of what she is and how she treats others. She doesn't draw attention to herself, but she does what needs to be done. She actively participates in class and does a nice job on her work without needing praise or attention. We can always count on her to do the right thing, whether we are watching or not. It's been a true pleasure to have Isley in my class, and I'm proud to have her represent the 6th grade class as our student spotlight.
I tried to recap as much as I could over the past month. So we had Red Ribbon Week, the week of October 23rd to the 31st, and that's just saying no to drugs and spotlighting. Now, we had Deputy Bubeck talk to all the kids during SEL time that week to discuss making good choices. So on Monday, we had Stop and Say No to Drugs, and that was where they wore the red. And then Give Drugs a Boot was Tuesday. Wednesday was Lay Off Drugs. Be an all-star, say no to drugs, and then finally, Bradford Best, say no to drugs. We didn't have a lot dressing up like that because it was also Halloween. So it was them having to wear their Bradford clothes, and then they came to school and changed into their Harvest Day Halloween costumes. It was also Fire Safety Month. We appreciate the Bradford Fire Department coming in and showing the students what the equipment looks like in case there was ever a fire. Talked about how the fire alarms, the smoke detectors work in the house, and the kids always like to see that. And I think it's great because if there was a fire, they wouldn't be so afraid to see if they had to come into the house and be rescued. So thanks again to the fire department for all that they did to help prepare students in case of a fire. We also had the Harvest Day Halloween party, and we had a lot of fun. We had several kids in their costumes here. It was nice to have parents back into school again to celebrate with students. It's always a fun time. I always thought as a teacher, this was one of the most exciting parties and one of the most stressful, getting everybody dressed and ready to go for the parties, but it was a great day. These are our students of the week. We had a good showing, and they're always excited to get student of the week, and we were lucky that Buffalo Wild Wings gave us student recognition cards. They all got free meals for Buffalo Wild Wings when they became student of the week. And Dairy Queen in Greenville also has given us certificates. So now we're going to be transitioning over to Dairy Queen meals. So thanks to the community leaders that have shared some certificates for them to eat. And then we did have a student of the month, 4 students of the week. One week I started looking through all that the teachers had sent out, and I had Aurora Mead nominated 3 times in that 1 week for all of that she was doing. So the art teacher nominated her, Mrs. Seafring nominated her, and so did her classroom teacher. So that was a pretty exciting week for her. And to be nominated by 3 teachers in 1 week was pretty outstanding. So we're really proud of what Aurora accomplished this past month.
All right, so we're going to start with the students of the week. There's 3 pictures up here because I was out on a Friday. I totally forgot to do 1 week, and I came back that next Monday, and the kids really kind of gave me some grief about it, which I thought was kind of comical because you wouldn't think middle school and high school students would get that all worked up about, hey, student of the month or student of the week kind of thing. So I thought that was kind of neat. I am going to have to up my game because my kids get a coat of ice when they come in. And they found out that the elementary students are getting meals at B-Dubs and Dairy Queen, so we'll have to start making some phone calls. But have another great show, and we have great students at Bradford, and it is nice to kind of highlight them on a regular basis. Real quick, Molly Clark went and participated at the National FFA Convention last month. She actually is one of the top 4 national finalists. When you're a national finalist, and Mr. Hurst, you can correct me if I'm wrong here.
Doing well so far.
But when you're a national finalist, she didn't win the national award, but she was in the top 4. So she was in the top 4 of the entire country for her swine production entrepreneurship. And Mr. Hurst and I've even said it at a board meeting before, we have listened to her presentation, and she just blows me away. and her project was unbelievable. So she went over there and did a great job, and, you know, she was one of the top 4 in the nation. So we're very proud of Mom. I'm gonna let Mr. Daugherty talk about the DC trip, and I'm gonna tell you a quick little story. So this is the first time I've done the DC trip as an administrator. I didn't go, Mr. Daugherty went, because Mr. Daugherty's the history guy, and he enjoys all that stuff. So he had told me, you know, we'll communicate back and forth on how the trip's going and everything. So I met them out here before they left and said, you know, good luck, have fun, and all that good stuff. And then he texted me kind of throughout the course of the day. Then I'm sitting down, I don't know, it's probably 8 o'clock at night, and he calls me, and I look at my phone, and I'm like, oh, good Lord, what happened? I was scared to death, because I mean, you know, when he calls, I thought, what happened? But he had nothing but great things to say. The kids had a great trip. Chaperones, we have 2 in the building, or 2 in the room right now. I think they all had a great trip as well. But he can talk a little more about that.
So we left last Monday really early in the morning, and this was a 4-day trip. Normally we do a 5-day trip, but because of COVID, because we didn't know what was going to be open, we ended up going on a 4-day trip. We ended up getting back late Thursday night, and it was very much a packed trip. I've done probably a dozen of these trips, and we were probably go much more than we normally are. The kids did a great job. I was a little nervous taking older kids. We took freshmen and sophomore this year. These are the COVID kids that missed out on the trips. When you take sometimes the older kids have a little bit more of an independence than the junior high kids, but they did an excellent job. We were complimented several times at several places. I talked to one of the volunteers at the Flight 93 Visitor Center, and they told us that we were one of the best school groups that they've seen come through here. The chaperones did an excellent job. Ken K will always say that the trip is made or make or break on the chaperones, and our chaperones did an excellent job this time. So I think that helped make the trip go a lot more smoothly. So I think the kids got a lot. We saw a lot. We had a lot of cool things happen. We were at the Marine Corps Memorial, and they were practicing for their anniversary, so they got to see the drill team and the bands out there. We got to, I mean, it was a really good trip. I think the kids had a good time. I know I'm still recovering from it. I'm still not caught up on my sleep, but it was a great trip.
And as soon as they came back from DC, we had our Veterans Day assembly yesterday, since we weren't in school on Friday on actual Veterans Day. Had quite a few veterans from the community come out. The FFA provided breakfast for them. You know, we had a nice assembly. Flip to the next one. And Cody Hartzell, our technology director, was our keynote speaker. He did an amazing job. He had a very interesting career in the Air Force that I think really kind of opened the eyes of a lot of our students, you know, K through 12, that didn't realize that, you know, our technology director had been all over the world. And that's really neat for those students to see, because not every student is going to go to college. Not every student is going to go to the military. Not every student's going to, you know, go into a factory or whatever it may be. But they at least saw that, you know, somebody that they know and they see every single day had a career in the military and was very successful, and now is using it in the school for them. And the kids love it anyway, so it was a really, really neat thing to see. Some upcoming events that we do have booster meeting, athletic booster meeting next week. Interims, as crazy as that is, are going to be due. They're actually due on Monday. We'll go home on Tuesday with the kids. We have our Thanksgiving break next Wednesday through Friday. Secret Santa starts December 5th through the 9th. There's a PTO booster meeting on the 7th. There's a blood drive on the 15th. Our next board meeting is on the 20th. And then I put these 2 in here because our next board meeting, I didn't want people to realize if they watch this and this is the only time they'll see it. We have a 2-hour early release on the 22nd of December. And then Christmas break is through the 23rd of December, and we come back the 3rd of January.
Is our meeting on the 20th?
Yeah.
I was thinking it was on the 13th. Okay. I thought we moved that one.
certainly can.
No, no, I'm glad it isn't.
Yeah,
I thought we
I've
did.
got the 20th.
Okay.
All right, good. Athletics, upcoming events, we're getting ready to start winter sports. It's crazy to think about. It's the busiest time of the year for, a lot of people, the administrators included, attending all the events. But, I just kind of wrote a list of all the upcoming games we have and ran out by the 3rd. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 11 events before we get to December 3rd. So it's crazy to think about, but it's a fun time of year. We have quite a few student athletes that are out to participate, which we're excited about, and should be a good season all the way around.
Do you mind if I skip around just a little bit?
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, I've got some pictures here of some of the construction pieces that we've been working on, and since the slide deck is already queued up, let's work through those real quick. We are rounding the corner with the bus barn. There's 2 carbon monoxide detectors that we're waiting on coming from wherever. They haven't come in yet. As soon as those are here, we can install those 2 pieces. Those will operate the fans and the louvers on the inside, and then the bus barn will be complete. We'll do a little painting on the inside before we get the buses in there, but theoretically everything's done there. One thing I do want to show, if anybody goes out there and looks, the pavement that you see in front of the bus barn is just the base. The top coat has not been done yet. They came out yesterday to do that, and said because of the temperature, they didn't want to put the top coat on, it wouldn't lay down flat and give us a good finish. So they're going to wait until the spring and come out and finish that up later. The inside is divided into 2 areas. This side over here is the, so to speak, mechanical area. So if we need to work on some buses, this area here is complete with the ceiling in there that's insulated, a little bit smaller area. So if we do want to run some furnaces or heaters out there, we can do that and not necessarily try to heat the whole building. The other side, the bigger side with the 5 doors on it, much bigger. Obviously, the fans in the back there you can see, and we took pictures from each of the corners just so you can see kind of what that looked like. Each of the garage doors has its own opener with a button that will be kept inside the individual bus. So each bus will be assigned a bay, and they'll be pulling their backing in. We're still discussing the semantics of that piece, but they'll be able to operate those doors from the bus. And we tested the lights out tonight. They are the old lights from the gymnasium with the motion sensors on them. So as somebody were to open up a door and back a bus in or pull a bus in, those motion sensors will come on and make the lights go on. So they're all automatic that way, and they'll shut off as soon as the buses leave, obviously.
And Mr. Miller converted them all to LED.
Yes, they're all LEDs now. Another base part of the asphalt is the road. We weren't originally going to pave any part of that road until the spring. Talking to the construction folks, they said the erosion coming off anywhere would basically maybe soil the stone isn't the right way to say that, but pollute the stone over the course of the winter time. So they said if we do this, it'll slow that erosion process down a lot more and make it a lot easier process and a lot more efficient and cheaper process in the spring. So we went ahead and paved the base layer for that road down right now. But again, in the springtime or when we're done with construction, we will go ahead and put the top coat on, but we won't use that road. We won't top coat that road until we're done out there. And we're talking about when to open that road with the semi trucks still in and out with gravel and dirt and everything. We'll wait a while before we actually use that for accessibility for parents. We may open it up for small traffic with staff members and that sort of thing beforehand, but common traffic with the community, I don't think I want to open that up until we know it's completely safe with no holes out there and those type of things. We started out, this is one of the aerial views. Shout out to Dan Scaff for putting this one together with his drone. But this was one of the early pictures with the dirt moving back there. moved along to a later picture with the gravel and everything that looks a little more pronounced. And the outline of the track obviously is exactly that you see right now. Now that was gravelled and they put pavement on it last week. Both coats were put on since we had 70-degree weather last week. It was perfect for that. This was the picture taken right after the rain on Friday, so we could see, you know, is there puddling out there? Are there fixes that we'll need to do? And the company Heiberger that's coming out to do the top part, the rubber top coat, they'll do that in the spring. This asphalt has to cure for 30 to 40 days, and then it has to be 50 degrees or warmer for them to put that top coat on. So putting this down now is a huge benefit, so they can get a quicker jump on it in the spring. But they did come out and look at it today and said, yeah, there's a couple places we're gonna have to tweak just a little bit. So they'll fix that before they put that top coat on. Those are the not the goal posts, but the scoreboard posts, those are ready to roll. Wanted to make sure the concrete truck didn't have to drive across the track later. So those were done early. And that I think is the last picture of the track itself. So that is our track and barn projects. So that being said, things are going, I think, pretty well with those projects, and we're getting close to the end, around the corner with all those pieces. I did want to, I see we have some LifeWise people here, and now that everybody's back in town and back in the state, we actually need to sit down and talk. We've got a proposal, I think, that we're ready to talk. I think it's probably better to talk with you guys individually than you want us to talk. And do you want us to tell you what our proposal is going to be or what our vision is, or do you want to talk individually first?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Well, we really haven't planned anything, we're just trying to, here to answer any questions.
See what happens and, okay.
Like that.
There we go. Sounds good. Well, right now, Michelle has done a wonderful job of trying to put together a schedule for this. Right now, we know for sure, well, I shouldn't say for sure. We have a pretty good feel that grades 1 and 2 should be able to be released during their library time for 30 minutes per week and be able to get them that release time out of school. Right now, that's all we can get right now. That may be where we have to stop, but at least it's a starting point. So,
See if that, you know, how the turnout is and whether we've got enough help and all that. I feel like that's a good starting place with opportunity to open it up to more after that.
and we'll start that next fall.
It starts to start.
You got it, exactly.
Very good.
It's the beginning. So, that's going to be we don't have an official proposal tonight. We didn't think that was fair to do a resolution before we talked to you guys. And I knew you guys some of you were unavailable last week, so, and we weren't supposed to be here today, so, yesterday or today.
And we
so.
appreciate all the hard work, and I know that this is above and beyond the volunteer, it's a passion you guys have, so. Anything that helps to raise the self-esteem and morale and values of students, I think.
Well, we want to work at the school all the way through, so whatever you work with, we'll work with it, so.
I think it's gonna be exciting just to see where it goes, so thank you all.
Yes, thanks. I think there's a lot of possibilities here. And that being said, that's all I have for my report, unless there's questions.
Can I say one more thing?
Sure.
I just wanted to say, conferences, we didn't mention conferences. We had a huge turnout at the elementary. Based on what the numbers are I have so far, we had at least 85% of parents come in for conferences for conference time this time around. And we also thank the PTO for providing pizza to all the teachers, but we really did have a good turnout. Lots of parents, and since we can come back, many of them did choose to come back into the building and have those conferences. So kudos to the parents, kudos to the teachers. It was very good turnout for conferences.
Thank you.
Thanks. Maria, did you have an update?
Yes, I have a few things. One, they're getting ready for sophomore enrollment next year at the Care Center. So they're getting ready to host their open house and their sophomore visits. They have a new program for next year. It's a first responder. It's for like fire, EMS, police. If you want to go into those fields, it's just a first responder class. They had 81 seniors get into the Career Tech Honors, National Honor Society, several Bradford students. I didn't bring my list, but there were several students on the list. And then 495 students attended the manufacturing days that they had for the 3 counties. So it's manufacturing days has really went from just a few people on a bus to most of the school gets to participate. So
Awesome.
I have.
Okay, thanks. Any questions for Maria? Sounds good. Moving in the right direction. Mrs. Serber, do you have an update?
Yes, I do. I'm gonna tell you about a few things, and then I want to go a little bit over the 5-year forecast, because I wanted to ask you to vote on it later in the meeting. But I just wanted to give you some highlights of the last month of some of my more exciting endeavors that I'm relegated to in my position. One of the things that I want to let you know is that we have a lot of check the box things are going away. Our fixed assets, we've converted that all to a new system. I'm going to be working with Cody. We're going to start actually combining our particular assets. I know Mr. Biesecker, we've talked about this before. I don't understand why we have a technology system and we have this. Those are no longer going to be like that. We're going to have the entire thing set up the way it needs to be. We're going to start doing the insurance valuation. We will bring everything to fruition, and by the end of this year, we should have a complete system, everything up to date. And we did that we will be doing that without any outside help. We were able to do that in that manner. So that's what I said, that's a check the box. Records retention, you're going to be voting. Finally, since 2001, this is a new document. This actually is up to date. It meets the Ohio Historical Record Society. It's been approved by them and approved by the state auditor's office. And with that has gone out to all the applicable people so we can start determining what records we can eliminate. And we've been scanning. We should be able to dispose of those records in a reasonable fashion because we do have all the documents in place to do that. So as I said, that's another check the box. Have been dealing with a couple audits since we last met. Still working on the state audit. It's moving along at the normal snail's it normally does. I haven't heard anything. I figured no news is good news. We're in the middle of an AUP audit, which is so we can do continue our Medicaid billing, and that has been an annual audit. This one is for 2020, 2021, and we are having to extend that because our CPA that is working with that is not going to be able to get it done because they have a whole new format, and we're going to have to learn that whole new program in order to meet the requirements. And then lastly, had a workers' comp audit this week, and we got through that fairly unscathed. And as far as the typical things, we also had a school safety grant from BWC that's come to a successful completion. Mr. Miller did an excellent job on getting that lined up. So we got several things working on our HVAC system by participating in that grant at no cost to us. So very successful with that. And I think you've got it up there. We're going to talk a little bit about the 5-year forecast. I'm just going to do this from my desk because I think I can answer your questions easily that way. And Mr. Hurst, if you would want to take it to the next line. There are 3 graphs here. If you notice, you have an expenditure line, you have a revenue line, and you have the cash balance line. We have a revenue line, which is the blue line, which I projected as fairly static. And that is because I don't know how much of you are aware of this, but with House Bill 110, we went through the Fair School Funding Plan. This is the latest and greatest from the state, and it's to have created an equity among school districts. Now, we were we did not lose any money with this plan, but I also don't think we had a great deal of money coming in with this plan. And what it is we have certain accountability measures in doing that, and we have to be very aware, and I have a lot of reports to file for disadvantaged pupils, have to prove that we've spent the money in the proper way. We have gifted allocations that we have to do reports on. We have to explain how we spent these dollars, and we have health and wellness that we have to show exactly how we're augmenting the situations for the students, and we have been very successful in those endeavors. But I don't see a lot of increase in our state funding for quite a while. Now, you're going to see that big accelerated section in 2022. That predominantly came from the money that we put out here from the general fund for roof repairs in the track. So for the most part, that money is, we hope we would be very successful with the cost being lower with the track. We're on budget, but we have, I'm not going to say we're going to be under budget. It's not reality in the COVID climate right now. It's just not coming through in a positive light. So I think you're going to see the bulk of that money not return to the general fund. And then you'll see the expenditures climb, which actually I have taken into account in this forecast the cost savings that we believe we're going to have from going to electric buses, which you didn't come through on your report.
I didn't report
which
on
I
that, I'm
was-
sorry.
Which I thought maybe we'll turn back to you for that
That's
because
fine.
it's one of our, it's a very exciting endeavor, and we've got to be more educated on EVs and how they operate, how you charge than we ever anticipated. But at the real story on this is if we can keep everything on track, we're still going to be in a positive situation at the end of 5 years. But this has to be monitored because I've been conservative on both ends. So this doesn't take any increase in enrollment, which I think we have been seeing increases in enrollment, in fact. And this just gives you an overview. And we're just going to highlight the rest of it so we're not here all night. So if you wouldn't mind changing that. This actually should say fiscal year 23, it does in the other part. This gives you a view of our state sources, which is 60% of the dollars that we receive. In this particular district, we are heavily supported by the state. So with that heavy support, that's one reason why you're not seeing me go our increases in our revenues from the general fund. And I'm going to talk about that in a little bit when we talk about some of the other things. But our local sources are about 40%. And if you look through those models, a lot of this I've already talked about. Talks about House Bill 110, so on and so forth. And I'm going to flip to the next page then where we talk about the local share of revenues grew in fiscal year 23 and expected to stay stable based on enrollment staying status. State share of funding fell in 23 is projected to remain relatively stable. Go to the next slide. This talks about several different things that I've really already covered. The reappraisals affect the real estate taxes, but that's not a huge part of our situation. Our school district income taxes, though, have seen a great increase in 2023 and unexpected increase. That has been the same. I have not projected out for that increase to continue because I'm afraid it's an anomaly and it'll give a false sense of security by projecting that out. But it has been real, it's been consistent, it's come in for the last few quarters. So it doesn't look like it's we no longer have the timing issues of COVID and the way the state changed things. It looks like real increases, but I'm just having a hard time thinking it's going to stay in there. So I've been very conservative on that. And And we've used Esser's money in some respect, but we haven't displaced a lot of the general fund at this particular point. Now, what this forecast does do, it addresses some of the dollars that we're going to be using for the track to pay back the certificates of participation that we were involved in. So just want to give you an overview of that. I've got a note on there on the school district income tax. I'm not going to go over that. Joe, do you want to change the, let's skip on to the next. This basically, I think this talks about our wages and benefits are at 77.5%. And purchase services is our next largest expense area. And purchase services, you know, that really is a lot of costs that we have to look at how we're going to control that and deal with that on a regular basis. When you look at those three components, that takes care of nearly 75% of the budget. So, or more than that, actually. We got 77 point the wages and then 23.4 of that's benefits, but purchase services does take up a considerable amount of the dollars, and that's one area where we try to control the spending and have that. Joe, would you like to go to the next? This talks about our cash balances. We're really in relatively good shape. If you remember, we had a cash balance policy. That's a best practice. Districts need to do that, and most districts haven't. We are in good step. We are not outside of the policy. When we get into the last year of this forecast, we're down to 53 days, which we are trying to maintain at least 60 days as our target. So I think if we go through the rest of it, a lot of it is just talking about various things in the forecast. We've got, once again, the fringe benefits. We've talked about that a little bit. You see how that is climbing, and that's predominantly because of health insurance costs. And Dr. Swab, you probably have a better feel for this than I do, but I don't anticipate this going down anytime soon. This is an area where we recently have been working with EPC and trying to explain to individuals how valuable it is to look at the high deductible healthcare plan. I think we've had some success. We finished up open enrollment last Friday, and we did have some people that are going to try that plan out this year and see how it's working. So, but we still have, we're probably closer to 40% of the staff is still on a PPO, but it's the tide's turning the proper way, and the consumer-oriented healthcare plan is more being utilized now. I have lots of notes in here that I'm going to talk about, but I just feel like most of this is something that we've already discussed. And I don't know if any of you had a chance, because I sent the entire packet, which is, I believe, 23 pages and has more information on this. This is an annotated version of it. But I guess I'm going to ask you if you have any questions or any concerns.
Their concern.
I asked you about a couple weeks ago when I sent you that text about the audit. Is that normal to take that long? Or is it because it's the outside company, or how?
Is it normal to take that long? I will tell you that what I did at my former district, I always did what they call a comprehensive annual report that forced them to have it done by December 31st.
Mm-hmm.
Now that report is something that can have value, but it also requires us to have things like fixed assets done. There are certain elements that we can't do a comprehensive annual financial report here. So what I'm telling you is it took about 6 months there, and that was only because they were forced to get it done. So I'm not going to tell you that it's typical, but I'm going to tell you there are a lot of people out there much longer than we have been. And actually, I don't think it's been too bad this year. I think they contacted me about 2 weeks ago and told me that they wanted to get a number that they needed to do a federal schedule that I have to sign off on. That was a good indication. So now, is it typical? Yeah, probably. They just,
Well, I talked about it at the Career Center at our meeting, and we're like, are you sure? Because they're getting an outside firm for the first time instead of, and I said, yes, we do, and they still take forever. And I just thought it would be a really quick process, and I'm like, no, it is not.
well, it all depends on how intent they are in getting everything done quickly. Now, I sent everything to them
Right.
immediately and thought that we would have it done quickly. And I expected to come back tonight and tell you it was done. But they get pulled off on other projects. It's a good indication. If they're seeing a lot of problems, I'd probably be hearing from them, and I just don't anticipate it, so.
Right.
So,
Okay.
but
Just curious if it always took that long.
the summary of the forecast is I feel fairly confident that we're in good shape, depending on what happens with state funding. But one of the other things that I wanted to talk to you about was to tell you that we've changed the dynamics here quite a lot. And the forecast talks about the general fund. And in the past, we've been talking about 58% of our income has been, back in 2017, 85% of our income was from the general fund. Last year, 57% of our income was from the general fund. This year, it looks like around 57%. That means this year we anticipate 43% coming from other sources. So that's how we're changing. That's how we're meeting expectations, and that's how we're able to do a lot of the things. So
What was the first number that you gave?
the first year, back to 17, I went back to June of 17 to give a relative basis. That was 85% general fund and 15% other funds. This year, if we make all the expenditures that are anticipated to make, which may or may not happen, we're at 57% and 43% other funds. So we've got a massive change in dynamics here that have allowed us to do a lot of things that we couldn't do in the past. So I know that my financial information is not a thrilling topic, but it's a necessary topic because we don't talk a lot about the finances, and I need to explain on a 5-year forecast. One of the things that I'd like to ask of you as a board, and we've talked about this briefly, is that I think everything that's been going on, I would like to look at the next meeting and possibly having a job description come forth for a position that with all this additional work could probably make it work better, because I may have some situations where I'm going to have to be out of the district. I'm very concerned that we don't lose this momentum that we've got going here. And Mr. Hurst and I have had some conversations about it and trying to come up with a good fit for what we need to keep everything moving forward. And if you don't have problems with that, I'd like to bring that forward in the future. One of the reasons why I'd like to see these numbers out here, because I think they explain that we're a changing district with a lot of situations that we can work through. So I apologize for the lack of brevity in my report, but there was a lot I wanted to say tonight so that you had some confidence in voting on the forecast. So with that, I'm going to conclude my report so Mr. Hurst can talk about.
I'm going to take that one step further. I'm going to say not only should we have a job description next meeting, but I'd like to go ahead and post an anticipating position and start moving on that interview process. So we get that under our feet and get the ball rolling with that position. So
Sounds good.
to go back to the school buses, I shared a spreadsheet from a meeting that we had with a charging setup last week. They put together real numbers with what we're paying for fuel and with with maintenance and DEF fluid and all those type of things, and compared those to the electric charges that we're actually paying right now. They came up with an estimated fuel consumption of the equivalent of 89, and figuring gas or diesel won't go up again, okay? And electric will stay consistent as well. Fuel consumption for a bus per year, we're paying $8,900 $8,917 per year per bus. That same dollar amount with an electric bus is going to cost us about $1,682. So over the course of a 13-year lifespan on these buses, you figure those two numbers, you figure in the maintenance repairs, the diesel exhaust fluid, and all those numbers, we're talking about the difference of roughly $536,000 difference between two electric buses compared to two diesel buses. That's the savings we will have for our district, is over $530,000.
Over what period of time?
13 years. Now, this is a Pollyanna type of speculation. I believe this is put together by the salesmen of electric buses. Obviously, they're going to be padded. I don't want to say they're padded, but I think they're probably favoring that way just a little bit. So I'm not completely buying into this. I look at some of these numbers and I think, well, I think that could be possible. But I also look at the DEF fluid or the diesel exhaust fluid. They've got that totaled at $2,500 over the course of 13 years with two buses. I feel like that's entirely low. We tracked all those numbers when Steve Hocker was doing all that. We look at that and in my calculations, I think that's about half of what it is. So I think there's some numbers here that are positive. I think there's some negative, but over the course of whatever, even if it's not as deep as what it is, I think that we're dumb not to look at these buses, and I think it will save the district some money. It'll be something that's new and innovative. It's untested. It's going to take about a year to get these buses once we sign the purchase order and make the order. But looking at them, I see absolutely nothing that's a negative with trying it out, because we're going to get, if we were to buy one new diesel bus to replace what we've got out there, it cost the district roughly $127,000 for the same bus that we paid $96,000 for 2 years ago.
And do you mind if I want to add to what you're saying. The one thing about it is the numbers they use in this particular example, they have model numbers. They ask if we had data. I've created spreadsheets on the transportation usage back to 2011-12 on forward. We were using our numbers in this calculation spreadsheet, so it seems viable. The main difference, to be very honest about it, in the calculation of these spreadsheets is the capital cost that we're not going to have, but we put the capital cost without the grant that we're going to receive, and there was still, it dropped the savings down considerably, but there was still considerable savings in it. So it would be harder to try this if we weren't getting such a lucrative grant. And I know you had asked earlier about the cost, but we also have some state funding that we're waiting on to see if that comes through. If that comes through, there will be no cost.
Right. My personal feeling is we can put together and have two brand new EV buses sitting in our barn with charging stations for less cost than half of a new bus that we normally
Oh,
pay.
yeah,
and I would even say it would be considerably less than that. So I think
It's like an opportunity.
we'd be stupid not to do it, and thanks to Carla for helping with the grant and putting all that together, and this wouldn't be even a discussion today if it weren't for that. So
Did you say earlier that the batteries last 8 years?
8 years guaranteed. Well, the warranty is 8 years on the batteries, yes.
And at the end of the 8 years, I don't know that they guarantee it'll be 80%. They're saying, but you can buy an extended warranty for up to 12 years on the battery life, that they gave a cost of $2,400 for that extended warranty. They must have a fair amount of confidence in the batteries, because I can't imagine that they would offer it for $2,400 for an extra 4 years unless it was, they were
Work out in
reasonably
their
sure.
favor.
So we could have up to 12 years. The projection was for 13 for an extra, and I think we even had them put the $2,400 in as the extra cost, didn't we, on that one calculation? So we tried to take that in. We were looking at a 12-year life on those buses, and
13.
but a 12-year life that we could assure that the battery would be
yes.
taken care of.
Yes.
Do they have any data on their battery degradation and charging over the lifespan?
Not real good data. It's new enough that there's not much out there. They figure anywhere between a 2 and a 5% degradation each year. So that's
Each
kind of
year?
Each year, yes.
And your max mileage is, right now, the max mileage new is,
138 miles,
and we need,
75.
so you have enough buffer
Oh, yeah.
We do. We do.
so that you can have
And
the,
Right, and I think the way things are set up, we should be able to get through the lifespan of the batteries without any trouble. But I'd still like, I mean, we've talked about a $4,000 slow charger versus a full $20,000 fast charger.
but you have a grant for the chargers now, right?
Right, there's $40,000 worth of infrastructure that we can put in there. And if we put in those fast chargers, once those batteries get to a certain level, we can go ahead and charge them in between routes even and still have enough time to do that. So it makes a lot of sense, and it would prolong the life of the buses if that was the case.
And quite honestly, this wouldn't be a fit for everybody, but it seems to be, because of the mileage, just an excellent fit for us.
For Bradford.
Well, is there gonna be separate metering, electric metering out there? So that we actually know what the cost of the electric is for these buses?
Yes, yes,
She says yes.
yes. And that was one of the things,
I'm being told yes.
that was one of the things that I talked over, because, and the one thing that cost analysis didn't take into effect, and I told them this, is that we get state reimbursement back on some of these dollars. So their impact that they're selling is not as good as what it is, because we get cost reimbursement back to the extent. If we don't have that building separately metered, we can't take that cost reimbursement back into effect. So we need that separately metered, so we'll get paid back for that. So that was one of the things that I talked to Skip about. And last I know, he assured me that was the case. You're making me question myself, because that's been a while ago that I asked him about that, but I'm sure that had to be.
Well, we talked about 2 different ways of doing it. The one would definitely be a meter. The second way, we'd have to put a separate meter in. So,
Well, we need a meter
we
regardless.
need a meter.
We'll have a meter.
Yes.
But, and I know you're gonna do it anyhow, because that's who you are, but track that from year to year and see if recharging cost of the buses are inching up, you know, as the batteries decline. And what does that look like year 1 versus year 10?
We know their data is probably very optimistic,
Mhm.
and because I really feel like the reason we're getting these so fully funded is because it's an experiment. They want to
need
get
data.
them out on the road.
Some real life data.
And I think being their guinea pigs is a very positive thing in our situation.
Right.
And I think we have the facility, we're putting in a facility, we've already seeing whether we need 484 phase or 3-phase, or whether we can do it with the slow chargers. We're still doing some consideration on that, but it's been a very much of a learning
It's a
experience
big
for us.
learning curve.
Fun to learn new stuff.
Even if you said the cost of the slow charger was how much?
Between $2,000 and $4,000
You know,
each.
if the bus is dropping, say, a third of its charge in the morning route, there's no reason that you can't plug it in before the afternoon route and maybe a ball game afterwards.
As long as there's enough time to make that battery go to 100%.
It has to go to 100%. Okay.
My understanding is you can't fill the tank just half full or 3/4 full. You have to get to 100% before you're even allowed to unplug it.
Okay.
I'd have a warm and fuzzy if they were hybrids, but that's not the way this is working. They're strictly electric.
It's fine. I mean, I've been driving an electric car for 5 years. Works, you'll be fine. You know, as long as you have a plan, and for us, you'll be fine. You know, as long as you have a plan, and for us, that short loop is perfect. You know, now if you had right at the range what your bus did, then that won't work in that range.
It was 120 miles each day for a bus.
Right, so you
Be a
have,
little reluctant.
you have built-in degradation option. You have, yeah, so for us, it's gonna be a very, I think, very lucrative way to reduce some of your costs.
Yeah.
Won't work for everybody, but
Right,
this niche will be good,
exactly.
especially with the upfront funding. I mean, if you were doing it all on your own initiative, funding it all, then we'd have a longer discussion. But I think with the opportunity that's available, it's a good choice for us.
Yep.
Just out of curiosity, did they talk anything about the weight distribution on these buses?
They talk very favorably about that. And that was one of Carla's favorite questions to ask.
Okay.
So
There should be more weight on the
Yeah, well, when we were at OSBA yesterday, we got in the bus and we have probably, been in 3-4 hours of meetings so far on these buses? Or is that an
That's
understatement?
very understated.
Okay,
And we've
well,
got
we've been
another
in a
this
lot of
week.
meetings and sitting in the bus and getting the feel for it, and Joe was enjoying it so much. And I'm looking around and I'm thinking about the batteries and how they're, and I asked him if there was a lower center of gravity on this vehicle and how that worked as far as stability on the road. And he said, well, that's been an unintended positive of these buses because they're stable because they have a lower center of gravity. So,
And instead of the weight of the engine being over the front tires where they really don't do much for traction or anything, the batteries are spread out almost evenly between the front and the back. So
What about if the bus gets T-boned by a larger vehicle? What's the chances of those batteries injuring the kids somehow?
I don't think any more than a fuel tank underneath of them. I mean, talking to everybody, of course, we're talking to those salesmen again, but they talk about the safety pieces that are in there that automatically shut off if there's a spark or a short somewhere. If basically everything a normal bus would have with the electronics of the dashboard and those type of things. If that low voltage 2 battery system up front goes out, then everything on the high voltage stuff shuts down. So there's a lot of safety pieces in between there that I hate to say this, my father-in-law always says he doesn't like gadgets on his cars because that's just one more thing that goes bad. But it seems like there's a lot of gadgets here that would help in a situation where if there was a safety issue, if there was a wreck of some sort, there'd be ways to shut that down.
and it looks like the lower center of gravity would be a situation where it wouldn't be as likely to overturn. I mean,
Right.
you've got a different center, and that's one of the things. You have a valid question, and it's not one that we ask, but it's gonna be, if a school bus gets T-boned, it's a bad situation, no matter what you're involved in, so.
And it is the same structure. The bus itself's got the same safety features as what a diesel bus would have. It's the same frame and everything else.
Are they similar weight? Are they a similar weight?
Yes.
to a
I
regular bus?
don't think they're much different.
There's not much
Just
difference in the way.
differently distributed.
Yeah, that's exactly, we had that question. In fact, that was one of the questions I had to answer in the grant, and there was very little difference in the weight, just slightly higher for the electric bus.
Any other questions? Yeah. So many new things here in the
Yes.
last couple of years. Any other questions for administration? Next is public participation. Do we have anybody who wishes to address the board? Next is the financial reports from treasurer. It's recommending the approval of the consent items listed, financial journal or check register, the now and then certifications, transfer and advances, the 5-year forecast, which we have reviewed, permanent appropriations, the EPC wellness grant for $2,900, and then the resolution for fiscal year 2024 tax budget, which is listed on page 4 through page 5. The last is recommending the Board of Education approve the record retention schedule for use with the school district as approved by the auditor of the state from October 28th. Do you have a motion to approve the items before us?
I move to approve.
And a second. Louis for a second. Any discussion or questions regarding the? We have none. Roll call for approval, please.
Dr. Swab,
Yes.
Mrs. Brewer,
Yes.
Pastor Rindle,
Yes.
Mr. Bezeker,
Yes.
Mr. Manuel.
Yes.
We have no old business items. Under new business, we have superintendent recommend approving the consent agenda items listed. Under resignations and employment, we have co-powerlifting coaches Greg and Curtis Hale and Sharon Moore, who will be retiring after 22 years of teaching here in the district. Is that at the end of the year?
Yes, that'll be at the end of the school year.
And next is employment of substitute contracts. Next is one-year contract for cafeteria position. You have supplemental contracts for covering the athletic director, the powerlifting coaches, assistant girls, junior high basketball coach, and track and powerlifting coaches. Supplemental contracts for educational aid and substitute custodian. Approving Mr. Daugherty for reappointment to the office of trustee of the Bradford Public Library. Approving a grant, approving the Environmental Protection Agency clean bus rebates of $750,000 for 2 new buses and $40,000 for the charging station. Next is moving Ruth Estes to Master Plus and Brandon Sweetman to Masters Plus. Approving employment as substitute teacher for assignment to one specific teaching position in excess of 60 days for Sierra Bullen. Next is approving M&T excavating for snow removal, accepting a grant from Miami County Foundation, approving the contract for Tarrant County ESC for OT and PT services for school year 22-23. And next is giving us the superintendent to apply for a new math class through the Ohio Department of Education as an alternative to Algebra 2. Motion to approve those listed
So moved.
items. Thanks, Scott. And a second?
Second.
Thanks, Craig. Any discussion or question over the items that we had listed?
I would like to say a shout out to Mrs. Moore. This is the 3rd retirement we've got this year that's going to be very difficult to replace. She's been an integrated piece of this community since 2001 when she started here. So big shoes to fill.
Absolutely.
I can say that because I've had a great opportunity to work with her, and she's just done a heck of a job.
Absolutely.
If no questions or discussion, roll call for approval.
Dr. Swab,
Yes.
Mrs. Brewer,
Yes.
Pastor Rindle,
Yes.
Mr. Bisecker,
Yes.
Mr. Manuel.
Yes.
Next item 11, which is approving Maggie Manuel as a substitute educational aide for 2022-2023. Have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Louis, thank you. And I will second. Any discussion or questions? If none, roll call for approval.
Dr. Swab,
Yes.
Mrs. Brewer,
Yes.
Pastor Rindle,
Yes.
Mr. Bisecker,
Yes.
Mr. Manuel.
Abstain.
Item 12 is recommending a change order for the concrete. And item 13 is recommending the award base for the base asphalt to Wagner paving in the amount of $35,000. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thanks. And a second?
Second.
Thanks, Scott. Any discussion or question regarding the change order and the award for the base asphalt?
Where's this additional concrete at?
We had a couple pieces out. Basically, we did the footer of the press box. There were two pie-shaped areas or a pie-shaped area and a blank space that we said it's kind of silly just to leave it like that. So we filled those in. And then we added a sidewalk around the back side of the press box until we get the ramps installed next to the new building. The handicap access is going to be the south end entrance to the stadium. So the only way to get to the actual home side bleachers is around the back side of that press box and up the ramp. So we wanted to make sure everything was accessible. So that's where they go.
And I was thinking Sandy put in that list. We actually have a list that shows all the various change orders that have been made in order to make this really a very viable piece. We just try not to leave anything out of the project that would make it better.
It's easier to do it now than to patch it in later.
And it'll look much better too, and much better price.
Any other questions? And roll call for approval, please.
Dr. Swab,
Yes.
Mrs. Brewer,
Yes.
Pastor Rindle,
Yes.
Mr. Bisecker,
Yes.
Mr. Manuel.
Yes.
Next is item 14, where the superintendent is recommending waiving the competitive bidding based on the board's authority to determine an urgent necessity exists and authorizing the contracts for the transport facility asphalt project. The details are listed on page 9 through the top of page 10. You've had a chance to review. Have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second,
Any discussion or questions?
the other wording makes me laugh.
Thank you,
We
lawyers.
already discussed
We
this.
joked about it outside a little bit.
It's all legalese, so it is.
Yeah. If no additional questions, roll call for approval.
Dr. Swab,
Yes.
Mrs. Brewer,
Yes.
Pastor Rindle,
Yes.
Mr. Bisecker,
Yes.
Mr. Manuel.
Yes.
The next item is considered the first reading of the new policies that was sent to us last week. I think the executive summary was nice to kind of get a blush on where things were changing. And does any of the board members have any questions over all of the policies and changes?
I have one just kind of clarification, and I'm not sure what the number was. I probably should have written it down before I came. But concealed carry courses and concealed licenses here in Ohio have been all over the place over the last few years. One of the clarifications here is even if somebody has a CCW, they are still not allowed to have that weapon on the premises without proper identification and locking abilities. So one of these has actually gone from, you can do this year, but then the laws changed to no longer you can do that. So this basically says, even if you've got a CCW, you're not allowed to bring your weapon onto the school grounds. So just want to clarify that. But that one was kind of a weird one that people wouldn't know about. And even when we sat down, I said, I didn't think I understood this way. So he explained it, and he's been very good, or Neil around, in explaining that that is no longer a possibility with today's law.
How will the public and visitors be informed of that?
Well, we still have our required signage on the doors and those type of things. Realistically, I don't know the answer to that.
Football games and so forth.
I don't know if we want to publicly say you're not allowed to have this here anymore. I draw more attention to it.
Is it in the building or on the premises? Like in your car?
It's definitely not in the building. It's never been in the building. But the way the law read before, if somebody had if somebody had their CCW, they could lock it in their car.
Right.
And keep it there. The way I understand it now, you're not allowed to do that anymore. And I'm not sure I can understand it enough to explain it to anybody, but I know it's enough to say, if anybody's got questions, I'm going to say, just don't bring your weapon to school. So I wish I could tell you exactly all the premise of it and the depth of it, but I simply can't.
But it reads facility,
I think it
Or
says
the grounds.
facility. They're not supposed to have it here, period.
even locked in their vehicle.
Correct. That was the change in my mind that was from before tonight.
That sounds to me like you're gonna be in a don't ask and don't tell situation.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other clarifications or questions regarding those items?
Most of the other
Anybody have
stuff
anything
was
else to
small
discuss
decisions.
regarding clear as mud? Things that we need to know. Next on the agenda is recommend a motion to enter executive session for item G1 on your agenda.
So moved.
Thank you. And a second.
Second.
Thanks, Louis. Roll call for executive session.
Dr. Swab,
Yes.
Mrs. Brewer,
Yes.
Pastor Rindle,
Yes.
Mr. Bisecker,
Yes.
Mr. Manuel.
Yes. 7:49.
And then the record retention portion of the meeting will be after our return from the executive session.
After we adjourn.
That's what we're doing.
Should we go across the road? We won't have it available afterwards. Stick around for
Oh, and it's gonna. I don't need my stove yet, do I? I'll try to find it. You're probably really ready for bed, huh, Karen?
Yeah, I talked to her.
It's a late night, huh?
Yeah, a little bit.
I had no idea. I didn't see what the situation was with his son.
Oh, yeah,
That's terrible.
it is. Got a lot of decisions to make and stuff.
Oh, gosh, my heart is out and I did not know that.
I know, this isn't gonna. Jay was out.
See you guys tomorrow.
We can talk a little more about that tomorrow, because like I did their time sheets today and everything, I mean, that's easy.
I just feel like I feel like I would like to help some way.
Well, I
That's something
appreciate
I
that.
could do, then I would do whatever.
Hey, he's just glad you're going to be our legacy Christian. Yeah, that makes us feel good.
You're welcome.
They'll say, what time is it? I'm like, right there's the clock.
How did you
But
tell?
they do not know how to tell time.
Isn't that crazy?
It is so crazy. No, it has to be 9. So crazy.
Yeah, they don't, all this thing follows you around, so you don't have to.
Yeah, you can't say.
How do you go clockwise if you're worried about being there?
I don't even know if they do that. I doubt it. I doubt it.
At 8:10, we were out of executive session. We have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Oh, wait a minute.
Sorry, Carla.
Sorry,
Maria, and it's gone.
Baby's already texted me. Okay, 10, motion.
Me, Scott, second.
I seconded.
You ready for the roll call?
Dr. Swab,
Yes.
Mrs. Brewer,
Yes.
Pastor Rindle,
Yes.
Mr. Bisecker,
Yes.
Mr. Manuel.
Yes.
We stand adjourned at 8:12.
Okay.